What's going on, guys? So thus far on this channel, the only videos I've really posted have been about gardening and me growing my own food and some tips and stuff, and that's a huge part of my life. But another big part of my life is hunting and fishing. You see, we live self-sufficiently, or as self-sufficiently as I can where I'm living, and a big part of that, we are meat eaters. For me, is hunting, putting meat in the freezer. And it does help out in the garden as well, my hunting. But hunting is a big part of us, our lifestyle, and how we live. My wife doesn't hunt, but I do, and like I said, that's how we get our meat. So in this video, it is going to be about hunting. Now, if you've subscribed and you're not interested in this, and you just want to see the gardening videos, don't worry, those are going to still keep coming out and all that. I just want to kind of show a different aspect of what goes into the way that I live. So in this video, is not going to show an animal being killed or harvested, but it will show an animal after it's been harvested. So if that's something that you don't want to see, then you probably shouldn't watch this video. But I hope that you still stick around to see the gardening videos. But anyways, yesterday was the opening day of archery for me this year. It was the second day of this particular season at this WMA, but it was the only day I was able to go. So it was my first day of hunting this season. And I went in for deer, but I was also willing to take a hog. The goal is just to put meat away for the year for us. So I went in with an open mind, and I went in strategically. I had been to this spot once, and it was one day, and it was 2 years ago. So I kind of just picked up, this hunt exactly where I left off. It started out really nice, and I've got some video of that to show you guys, and then it got crazy. And I didn't get a lot of video because I just have my phone, and it would have been impossible to videotape this, but it was insane. And it was the best, also the scariest, craziest hunt that I've ever had. So I'm gonna show you guys some of the video from the morning, and then I'm gonna come back and tell you the story of the warrior versus the hunter. It was nuts. So you guys stick around and check this out. Good morning, everybody. Look at that sunrise right there. Isn't that gorgeous? Yes. So right now is the opening day of archery for me. Technically on this wildlife management area, the season opened yesterday, but I wasn't able to come. And so now I'm out here. The sun's just about to peak above the horizon, and the mosquitoes are tearing me up, but I'm happy. I'm not gonna lie, I miss my wife, I miss my son. This is the first hunting trip or time that I'm really away besides working since my son has been born. And there is a little bit of guilt feeling there, but I'm sure that's just something that I have to get used to. But man, what a gorgeous morning. I'm sitting, this is a big pond here, probably, I don't know, a 20-acre pond. You can see where those trees over there, that's the edge. There's several little islands that deer can be bedded down. And then there's those two islands over there. And I'm on an island. And then that's the other edge of the pond over there, a few hundred yards. So pretty much I'm sitting here this morning. I've only been here once before, and it was 2 years ago. And I walked out through the water to this island here, and I jumped 2 does right along this edge. So I'm sitting here this morning hoping that I can get that same type of opportunity, but really what I'm doing is watching those two islands right there. You can tell there's oaks, especially on this one, and that's where the does ran to when I jumped them 2 years ago. So I'm really watching those two islands, seeing if there's any movement, and I may get down, you know, later. They're not that big, but I may get down if I see something move to that island, especially if it's raining later, and try to maybe sit in between the two islands, catch things crossing back and forth. But man, for right now, I'm just enjoying this view. Look at that reflection in the water, cotton candy sky. You can't see it, but there's a bunch of birds flying. All right, guys, I'm gonna hang tight, and how beautiful. I'm gonna hang tight and see if I can't get it done this morning. I'll check back in with you guys after a while. Alright, you guys, I know it's hard to see on this phone. It doesn't zoom in very much. But if you look to where my finger is pointing up in there, you might be able to see some movement. There's a doe and a yearling at 266 yards. Now, I was just about, and they're standing broadside, I was just about to get down and make my way towards that direction, because I've seen a lot of activity this morning on that side of the pond and going back and forth from those islands. I'm gonna watch these two deer before I make any decisions, and then I'll check back in with you guys. Now you can really see them. You've got the big doe on the left and her yearling fawn there on the right. I'm not sure what they're doing. But I need to be over there. But I need to make sure that they're not going to be there while I make my way over there. That's the problem. That's the problem. Alright, you guys, so I've gotten down, and just to kind of put this into perspective so you can see how it's been going on, is on this side is the island that I've been sitting on, and on this side are those two islands that all the deer activity has been happening at this morning. and I'm slowly trying to make my way around and get up to these pines over here, and hopefully find one that I can get up in and that these deer won't wind me, because the wind, it's not perfect for this situation, but it's not terrible. It's manageable, and I'm just hoping that I can be a ninja and get up in here without spooking them. It's hard because with all this water, that's part of the reason that they bed up on those islands, is to that they can hear everything coming and going. So anyways, that's what's going on, and I'll check back with you when I find where I'm gonna sit. All right, so at this point, it's just after 11 o'clock, 11 a.m. and I'm getting really close to the edge of the pond, close enough to those islands that I'm thinking I might be able to get a shot of deer moving, you know, back and forth from the islands or back to the east side of that pond. When I got over there, there weren't many trees to choose from, and the biggest, widest, you know, tallest tree that I could have climbed up in and potentially sat in was still 105 yards from the bigger island, the island to the left when I was recording before, and that's where 5 of the 6 does that I had seen that morning, because I had already seen 6 deer. 5 of the 6 of them had gone onto that island, and I assume bed down. So, and only 1 had gone to the island that was on the right, the smaller south island. So it was still 105 yards from the bigger island of a shot. And I thought that since there's no trees behind me, it was just a singular tree, that I would get skylined. You know, deer see movement really well. So it would have been a really tough spot to be in. So what I decided to do, you know, I only had 1 day for this hunt. So I decided to get super aggressive, which is a lot of times what you have to do to be successful, you know, down here hunting. So I decided to use the wind to my advantage, come up from the south, get on that south island, walk the edge of it, you know, to the west, and then come into the east. So just keeping the wind in my face the whole time. And I used the wind to my advantage because it was a super thick island. You know, it never sees a prescribed burn or anything. It's surrounded by water, just a little, you know, 40-yard in diameter island, really tiny thing. There was a lot of briars and stuff to walk through, a lot of down palm fronds, super noisy stuff. And what I did is I used the wind to my advantage to mask my noise. When the wind would gust real hard, I'd take a few steps. And I had just got to a spot where it kind of opens up in the middle, and you can see like where animals, you know, can move through. There's almost like little tunnels. People that hunt like this know what I'm talking about. And I had just seen a huge pile of doe droppings, you know, a huge pile of deer scat, and I took a picture of it. And then I heard a noise. I thought to myself that one of the does must be bedded up still, you know, in this island. So I knocked an arrow and took a couple more steps and looked, and this giant boar gets up from where he was bedded down. And he's quartering slightly, but mostly broadside. He's quartering slightly because he's looking right at me, and he's 10-12 yards away at max, okay? Little bit of brush between us, but not much. And he's staring at me, but they don't have good eyesight. You know, I've killed enough hogs and been close to him that if you stand super still, it's not going to see you. So he stood there and stared at me for, it felt like 5 minutes, but it was probably about 30 seconds. And big boar. And then as soon as he turns his head away, I drew back and I drilled him right behind his front shoulder, and I, you know, a little bit low to miss the shield, and it was a through and through. And I mean, you'll see the arrow was laying right there, tons of bright red blood. It had bubbles in it, so I knew, you know, I sliced lungs, probably got a chunk of heart because it was a really good shot. He had jumped, squealed, which is indicative of a heart shot, and twisted around, and then he squared up with me and stared at me again, and I just stood so still. And he turned around and barreled off the island. I heard him sloshing through the water and then go into brush on the other side, okay? So at that point, I sent the little video to my buddies, because technically I'm his guest, or his wife's guest actually, on this WMA. So he's like, oh, you knocked one down. I said, yeah. And then I tried to call him and he didn't answer. So I went over and, found my tree that I want to sit in to get an opportunity at these deer. But then he called me back. Turns out they had gone back to the hotel. He had just taken a shower because it was super hot. He had sweated the whole morning. He wanted to take a scent-free shower. And we had decided that it was 11:30, and if that pig dies, it's gonna sit there for 8.5 hours before we go looking for it, because that's when it gets dark now. And we decided not to do that. We don't want to ruin meat. That's the reason why we're doing this. So I crossed the pond, started looking for blood, and I found blood, and a lot of blood. I mean, this pig was bleeding a lot. It was smeared everywhere. There was drops of it all over the place. I got a little bit of footage of me tracking it before he gets there. And see, my buddy, he's a wounded in combat veteran, and he's eligible. He's allowed to drive his ATV on a lot of the WMAs. So the blood trail crosses a fire break that he's allowed to drive on. He comes rolling up the fire break in the ATV. His wife stays in the side by side, and him and I continue to track this boar. Okay. Now I'd stuck the arrow that I shot him with in the ground where I stopped blood trailing to wait for my buddy on the fire break. So we passed the arrow. We keep going. After this, there's no more footage until we recover the animal, and that's just because, to be honest with you, I like making these videos, but I was in hunting mode. The full focus is getting this animal put down, and actually it didn't even cross my mind once to pull my phone out, because this was intense, and there was my worry was the animal. That's it. So by the time we finally catch up to this big guy, is 750 yards from the initial shot, because I was tracking it on my Hunt Stand app. So I had blood trailed him 750 yards. He's still alive, and he's burrowed up into bushes, palmettos and some scrub. So there was only two openings that, still covered in brush, but two somewhat openings that you could get a shot in. So my buddy Corey stays with the way that the hog's facing to keep its attention. I walk around the back, and I get a shot. He's quartering away pretty hard, and I snuck it in right behind his shoulder again, and it 100% was up in his vitals. I mean, just perfect shot. He squealed and he dropped right down. So we thought that's it. I start making my way back around to the front of the bush. The way the hog's facing, that's where my buddy's at. And as soon as I get into that hog's view, this thing gets up and charges like a rhinoceros. I mean, I've had pigs come at me and go to the side. You stand still, they miss you or whatever. I've never had a pig this big charge at me, especially, and he was wounded. I mean, this was super dangerous. Put a lot of things into perspective. So he charges at me. My instinct, the only thing I have in my hand is my bow. My instinct is just put my bow out and start running. As soon as he got close, I pounded him in the head with my bow, let it go. And it amazes me, we're in water, and we're also in high grass. So I was high stepping like Fort Scump running through Vietnam. And this thing got on me so fast. I mean, it blows my mind, to be honest. So he gets on me, he thrashes his head up, cuts me through my pants. It didn't rip my pants, but it put a nice little scratch on the back of my leg that today is just a huge bruise. So this is the craziest and also luckiest. I mean, I keep telling people that we were two warriors in the Roman Colosseum, and one of us had to go. He tried to get me. But my buddy was standing right there. I'm yelling. My buddy's yelling. The thing sees my buddy and catches his attention just for a second. I'm able to get away. My buddy heels him right in the head, and it turns around and goes back into the bushes that it was in. So that's after a second lethal shot with a 70-pound bow, heavy arrows, and a 2-inch cut schwacker. So at this point, adrenaline's rushing for everybody. You know, my buddy's wife is 300 yards away on the side-by-side. Luckily, we're also now, you know, 300 yards away, we've run into like another fire break. So she brings a side-by-side around, you know, to where we are. And he pulls up pretty much close to where the hog is. I'm standing on the back. The only thing right now that the hog has presented to us is his head. So I stand on the back of the side-by-side. I draw back and I put the pins right between the hog's head. I drilled him, and you'll see, I'll put a picture. I have a schwacker and then an outsert, you know, a weighted outsert, a 50 grain outsert on the tip of my arrow. All of that embedded into this thing's skull. So we're talking 3.5, 4 inches into its head. You know that it's in his brain. He gets up, he rams the side-by-side, you know, like a tank, lifts it up a little bit. It was a brand new side-by-side, pulled out the front bumper, and it's steel, you know. That thing does all that, turns around, and goes back inside. We're amazed that it's still alive. This is the 3rd shot now, and it's in its head. So then I load my last arrow from my quiver onto my bow, and I go up and I take another shot this time, but I'm aiming for his eye, because again, the only thing you know, open is his head. And it ended up hitting, I don't know if he moved, I don't know if it clipped a leaf going in, but it hit him an inch or so under his eye, but again embedded about 4 inches. And he got up and he hit the side-by-side again, and we ended up backing out of there. I was out of arrows, went back to where I left the arrow, you know, on the blood trail, and I picked that arrow up, go back, I said, look, we got one more shot. And I ended up hitting him right in the neck, because he again, it was just his front quarter showing, but I hit him right in the neck, and you know, he turned on the side. And so that's 5 shots now. He got up, he did a false charge. He didn't hit us this time, but he did a false charge. He went back in and he laid back down. But anytime we'd move or we'd talk, he'd get up. He was alive after 5 shots. So we debated about, you know, shooting him with a pistol, because it's controversial. We've both, you know, my buddy and I have both seen where people, you know, shoot an animal that they've already shot with a bow, they shoot it with a pistol, and then how do you prove that you didn't shoot it with the gun and then just stick it with an arrow, you know? So we decided, you know, due to these laws, just to let it expire, and it took 45 minutes for this giant pig to expire after that 5th shot. I had no more arrows. That was all I could do. And you know, the way he was burrowed into the bushes, it was impossible to get in there from behind and grab his back legs and, you know, put him down with a knife. So he was a warrior. He was a beast. I'll show you a little video of him laying there. He was so scarred up. His ear was freshly cut, about this long, you know, maybe a week ago, 2 weeks ago, like hadn't even healed over. I've never seen a pig more covered in scars. So like, I wish that I was one of these guys that had someone following me around with a camera, because this would have been the craziest thing. But I just had to share the story at least, and then show you guys, you know, this success on my first hunt this year. You know, I hunt hard. It's been years since I've gone a season without harvesting. You know, this is the way we live. So it really depends on me, you know, killing deer and then killing pigs, you know. So I just wanted to share this story with you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'm still going to be pumping out gardening videos, but I am going to start throwing in some more of this hunting and fishing stuff as the season goes on. So thank you guys for watching, and we'll catch you later.